Consequences. Something about those two men continued to bother Rick's instincts, but the alcohol and pressure from his colleagues were stronger than his caution. Daniel remained motionless against the hood, his eyes moving constantly as he calculated distances, angles, vulnerable points, a habit born in a very different place where miscalculating meant not coming home. Fallujah, 2011, where Captain Daniel Thompson crouched behind debris with 3 insurgents ahead and only 3 seconds to decide. Brett snapped him back to the present with a slap to the side of the head. "I'm talking to you," Brett barked. "You careful what you say," David interrupted softly, still not moving, his voice carrying that dangerous calm. "Some words can't be taken back." Jake lurched forward and shoved David hard. "Or what, are you going to sue me? Call the police," he sneered, spreading his arms. "We are the police, you idiot." Brett began patting Daniel's pockets with deliberate aggression, dumping wallet and phone onto the asphalt. "That's an expensive phone for someone who probably stole it, huh?" he jeered. "Give that back, Daniel," Daniel ordered. Not a request, but the kind of command he'd learned to give and have obeyed. Brett, irritated by the tone, sneered. "Or what are you going to do?" And for a heartbeat Daniel's mind flashed to Norfolk Naval Base, 2018, where Commander David Thompson inspected his SEAL platoon and taught rookies that discipline isn't brute force but knowing when to use power and when to save it. Jake, shaking, tried to sound authoritative. "Freeze there," but his uncertainty betrayed him next to David's composed, intimidating presence. "Do you guys have any idea how many laws you've broken in the last 10 minutes? David asked, calm and precise. "Harassment, assault, illegal search without warrant or probable cause." Brett laughed and mouthed "street lawyer," while Rick, tense, finally tried to stop it. "Brett, man, that's enough, they're leaving." Luis from the bar window recorded everything on his phone, remembering too many scenes like this where Brett's gang picked on those they saw as defenseless. This time, though, something was different. The twins' patience unnerved him. Jake, growing bolder from drink, poked David's chest. "I think you guys came here looking for trouble. You want attention." The brothers exchanged that half-second of silent communication, combat coordination, tactical sync from years of joint operations, and Brett produced handcuffs. "Hands behind your back now," he ordered. "No," Daniel said simply, and the parking lot held a 3-second silence. Brett blinked, incredulous. "What did you say?" he demanded. "I said no," Daniel repeated, crossing his arms. "We haven't committed any crime. We're not going to be handcuffed. If you try to touch me again, you'll find out it was the worst decision you ever made." The audacity stung Brett. People didn't talk to him that way, especially not those he considered inferior. "Are you threatening me?" he barked, his voice a register higher. "No," David interjected smoothly. "He's warning you, a big difference." Rick took a step back as his instincts finally won out. "Guys, seriously, something's wrong here. Let's go." But Brett, flushed with rage and humiliated by the public challenge to his authority, refused to relent. "No, these two are going to learn today," he said, grabbing his radio. "I'm calling for backup." Daniel laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You have no idea what's right," he said, and beneath the words lay the weight of battles fought and the patience of those who wait for the exact right moment to act. Jake tried to grab David's arm, but the commander shifted his weight just enough that Jake's hand met nothing but air. The movement was so smooth and effortless it almost looked accidental, but Rick saw it, and recognized combat training instantly. "Brett," he said sharply, his instincts screaming. "Stop this now." "Shut up, Torres," Brett snapped, brushing him off. The lights from the bar flickered out as Luis locked up, the parking lot falling into near darkness. In a few minutes, that space would witness something that would change every life present. Daniel glanced at his wristwatch. An Illuminox Navy SEAL edition, discreet but unmistakable to anyone who knew. "You have exactly 1 minute to apologize and walk away," he said evenly. Brett laughed in his face. "Or what?" "Or you'll find out," David replied. "There are very specific consequences for corrupt police officers who harass high-ranking military personnel." The words landed like a grenade. "Military personnel?" Brett frowned, trying to process it, but before he could, Jake, drunk, arrogant and reckless, made the worst possible decision. He drew his baton. "Enough talk," he growled, lunging forward. And that was the moment everything changed. What the three officers didn't know was that the next 30 seconds would be caught on video, go viral, and end their careers, along with the corrupt network they represented. Because Daniel and David Thompson weren't just twins who knew how to defend themselves. They were human weapons, trained for war, conditioned to act with surgical precision, and waiting for the moment when self-defense became both justified and undeniable. Jake's baton sliced through the air but never connected. David tilted his head 2 centimeters left, just enough to let the weapon pass. The efficiency was chilling. Jake stumbled forward, thrown off balance, and before Brett or Rick could react, Daniel already had his phone out, recording. "Unprovoked assault by armed police officer," he narrated calmly. "Attempted assault with a blunt weapon against an unarmed civilian. Turn that damn thing off." Brett roared, lunging for him, but Daniel stepped back smoothly, maintaining perfect distance. "Interesting," David said, pulling out his own phone. "Now it's 2 officers attempting to illegally confiscate private property while committing assault." That's when Rick understood. The way they moved, communicated without words, stayed aware of every detail. They were military. Not just soldiers, but elite. "Brett," he urged, grabbing his partner's arm. "Stop now." "Why?" Brett barked. "They're recording." "Perfect. I'll show the world how we deal with criminals resisting arrest." Luis appeared in the doorway, phone in hand. "I've already called the county sheriff," he said loudly. "And I've sent the videos to 3 local newspapers." "You're fired, Luis," Brett growled. "And your bar's getting a health inspection tomorrow." "It won't," a woman's voice cut through the night. A black woman in a tailored suit stepped out from a nearby car, her posture radiating authority. "Because I am Assistant District Attorney Lisa Monroe, and I just witnessed 3 police officers commit at least 7 documented crimes." Brett's face drained of color. Lisa approached, badge in hand. "Harassment, intimidation, attempted assault, abuse of authority, misconduct. Want me to go on?" They started it." Jake stammered, pointing at the twins. "They provoked us." Lisa arched an eyebrow. "Really?" "Because the videos I've received show you 3 initiating and escalating the entire encounter, even after multiple warnings." David put away his phone, a small, knowing smile tugging at his lips. "Prosecutor Monroe," he said. "Long time no see." "Commander Thompson," she replied with recognition, then turned to Daniel. "Captain Thompson." The silence that followed was total. Rick shut his eyes, realizing the enormity of their mistake. Brett blinked, lost. Jake froze, baton still dangling from his hand. "Wait, what?" Brett muttered. Daniel stepped forward, his tone now sharp and commanding. "Captain Daniel Thompson, United States Army, Ranger Battalion, currently an instructor at West Point." David followed. "Commander David Thompson, Navy SEAL Team 6, currently on leave after 3 tours in the Middle East." The weight of reality crushed Brett. He had just assaulted 2 of the most highly trained officers in the U.S. military on camera with witnesses. "That doesn't change anything," he tried weakly. "You never identified yourselves as—" "We're not required to identify ourselves to civilians," Daniel interrupted, his voice like steel. "And definitely not while being illegally harassed by drunk, off-duty officers." Rick raised his hands. "Look, there's been a misunderstanding. We can just forget it." Lisa's voice was sharp. 3 armed, intoxicated officers harassed 2 decorated veterans, attempted illegal arrest, and committed assault. "You think that just goes away?" Jake began to shake. "We didn't know they were military. If we had. So it's fine if they're civilians." David cut in. "You're saying harassment's okay as long as your victims aren't military?" The question hung like a blade. Brett tried to recover. "You've got no proof. It's your word against ours, and there are 3 of us." Prosecutor, Daniel said calmly. How many videos do you have? 4 angles, Lisa replied, glancing at her tablet. Louise started recording inside the bar, the Thompsons covered the parking lot, and I've got the last 8 minutes. Oh, and the tavern's security cameras still work. Plus, David added, raising his wrist, our watches record audio and video. Standard protocol in civilian zones. Brett's knees buckled. Lisa kept scrolling. And we've already got 3 witnesses willing to testify. Rick sat on the curb, head in his hands, knowing it was over. His career, his marriage, his future. What do you want? Brett asked desperately. Money. An apology. What we want, Daniel said evenly, is justice. Not just for us, but for everyone you've done this to. Lisa nodded. Because I guarantee this isn't the first time. How many, Brett? How many lives have you ruined thinking you were above the law? Jake began sobbing. My career, my family. You should have thought of that, David said coldly, before you decided other people didn't deserve respect. Sheriff's patrol cars pulled in, lights flashing. A deputy stepped out, greeting Lisa. Prosecutor Monroe, we got your call. These the guys. They are, she confirmed. 3 counts of harassment, attempted aggravated assault, abuse of authority, and misconduct. And that's just for tonight. As the 3 officers were handcuffed, Brett looked back at the twins, confusion on his face. How did you set this up? Daniel met his gaze. We didn't, he said simply. You did it all yourselves. We just made sure it was documented. Luis approached, gratitude in his voice. Thank you. They've been doing this for years. No one ever stood up to them. How many? David asked quietly. Dozens. Maybe hundreds, Luis said. Always the same kind of victims. Anyone they thought didn't belong. Daniel nodded slowly, his expression hardening. What began as self-defense was turning into something larger. Lisa closed her tablet. You're free to go. I'll need statements tomorrow. He paused. Anything else you want to tell me about these 3? The twins exchanged a silent look, the kind forged in war zones. Maybe, Daniel said at last. But first, we need to make some calls. Just then Brett's phone buzzed. Then Rick's. Then Jake's. Notifications exploded across their screens. Brett unlocked his, face draining of color. The video had gone viral. Hashtag corrupt cops exposed too. 3 million views in under 3 hours. Every angle, every face, every badge. Comments poured in, victims coming forward, reporters calling. Lisa glanced at her tablet. 17 victims so far, all with evidence. Brett tried to speak, but the deputy sheriff cut him off. Save it. You're suspended without pay pending federal investigation. Every arrest, every report from the last 8 years. Under review. Rick broke down completely, realizing his wife had already seen the footage and filed for divorce. David stood silent, arms crossed. You had every chance to stop, he said quietly. Every warning ignored, every opportunity wasted. Captain Daniel Thompson looked at the 3 broken men and said the final words of the night. His tone calm but absolute. Actions have consequences. You finally met yours. Jake tried to grab David's arm, but the commander simply twisted his body, causing Jake's movement to meet only air. It was so smooth and efficient that it seemed accidental, but Rick saw it and recognized combat training when he saw it. Brett, Rick said urgently. Stop this now. Shut up, Torres. The bar lights went out. Luis was closing up. In a few minutes, that parking lot would witness something that would completely change the lives of everyone present. Daniel glanced at his watch. An Illuminox Navy SEAL, discreet but unmistakable to those who knew. You have exactly 1 minute to apologize and leave. Brett laughed in his face. Or what? Or you'll find out, David replied, that there are very specific consequences for corrupt police officers who harass high-ranking military personnel. The phrase hung in the air like a grenade about to explode. Before Brett could react, Jake, drunk and arrogant, made the worst possible choice. He pulled out his baton. "Enough talk," he growled, advancing. And that's when everything changed. The next 30 seconds would be filmed, go viral, and destroy not only their careers but the entire network of corruption they represented. Daniel and David Thompson weren't just twins who knew how to defend themselves. They were human weapons trained with military precision, waiting for the exact moment when self-defense became justified and devastatingly documented. Jake's baton sliced through the air but never reached its target. David simply moved his head 2 centimeters to the left, the bare minimum necessary. Jake stumbled forward, and before Brett or Rick could process what had happened, Daniel was filming calmly. Unprovoked assault by an armed police officer, attempted assault with a blunt weapon against an unarmed civilian. Brett lunged for the phone, but Daniel stepped back, keeping perfect distance. Now it's 2 officers attempting to illegally confiscate private property while committing assault, David added. Rick realized in horror that these men weren't ordinary victims. They were military, likely special operations. "Stop now," he warned Brett. "Why?" "They're recording." "Great. I'll show the world how we deal with criminals resisting arrest." That's when Luis walked out with his own phone recording. "I've already called the county sheriff," he announced. "And I've sent the videos to 3 local newspapers." "You're fired, Luis," Brett roared. "Your bar's getting a health inspection tomorrow." "It won't," said a firm female voice. A black woman in a suit stepped out of a car. "Because I'm Assistant District Attorney Lisa Monroe, and I just witnessed 3 police officers commit at least 7 documented crimes." Brett froze. Harassment, intimidation, attempted assault, abuse of authority, misconduct. Lisa counted on her fingers. "Shall I go on?" "They started it," Jake stammered. "Really?" She raised an eyebrow. "Because the videos I've received show you 3 starting the confrontation and continuing after multiple warnings." "Prosecutor Monroe," David said. "Long time no see." "Commander Thompson," she nodded, recognizing him. "Captain Thompson," she added to Daniel. The silence was absolute. Brett blinked, confused. Daniel stepped forward. "Captain Daniel Thompson, United States Army Ranger Battalion, currently instructor at West Point." "Commander David Thompson, Navy SEALs Team 6, his brother followed. Reality crashed down. Brett had harassed 2 of the most highly trained military officers in the country. On camera. Lisa listed the charges, and as sheriff deputies arrived, Brett tried to save face. "You have no proof." "4 different videos," Lisa replied. "Plus your own body cams, security footage, and our watches. Military-grade audio and video recording." Brett slumped as the deputies cuffed him. "What do you want?" he asked desperately. "Money. An apology." "Justice," Daniel said. "Not just for us, for everyone you've done this to." Lisa nodded. "I bet you 3 have a history." The sheriff arrived, confirmed the charges, and took them away. Within hours, the footage went viral. #CorruptCopsExposed hit 2.3 million views in 3 hours. By morning, national news covered it. By afternoon, the mayor announced a department overhaul. By evening, the officers faced 23 charges. 6 months later, Brett served coffee at a diner. Jake sold insurance, and Rick worked night security. The police department had been reformed. Dozens of victims exonerated. And Daniel and David now led national programs on ethics and accountability. "Respect isn't demanded," Major Thompson told a packed lecture hall. "It's earned." David, now consulting at the Pentagon, appeared on the cover of Time magazine. Asterisk the commander who changed the debate on police abuse. Asterisk Luis's bar thrived. Now a symbol of courage. Lisa Monroe became the first black woman elected chief district attorney with 73% of the vote. On his last day of probation, Brett saw Daniel on TV saying, "Hate doesn't define who we are. It defines who we choose not to be." Brett turned off the screen, crushed by irony. He had once had power, privilege, and a badge. The Thompsons had only dignity, and they won. Because arrogance always loses to competence. Prejudice always falls before character. And those who judge by appearance always realize too late that they misjudged the right people. The best revenge isn't destruction. It's building something so strong your enemies can never reach it. Justice has no color, has consequences.